Welcome to the Korea Pro podcast. I'm your host, Jeongmin Kim, the editorial director of Korea Pro.
And I'm John Lee, the editor of Korea Pro.
Join us for a weekly 15-minute conversation as we dive into the most pressing stories shaping South Korea and dissect the most complicated ones for you.
From politics to culture, technology to society, we've got you covered. So stay ahead of the curve and never be sidelined again.
So get ready for a fresh perspective on South Korea's news. This is the Korea Pro podcast.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Korea Pro podcast. It is now August 8th, Thursday. It's a little bit close to 5 p.m., and we have to discuss quite a few things that have happened this week. Now, the first thing that we're going to discuss is, the Sado gold mine that was just listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Right, but there were new developments about older developments that were just belatedly revealed. Apparently, Japan rejected South Korea's request to insert the word forced into to describe Korean laborers in the Sado mine. So why is this coming back all of a sudden after it's already registered?
Well, that comes to the crux of the matter. The reason why Japan was finally able to get it registered as a World Heritage Site was that South Korea agreed to allow Japan to go ahead with it. And South Korea was a country that was really resisting the Sado mine's listing because of Japan's attempts to downplay the forced nature of Korean laborers in the past. And the agreement was South Korea would finally say okay to it, but Japan had to memorialize the fact that Korean laborers, forced Korean laborers, had participated in the mines during the Second World War.
And Japan said yes to that.
Apparently, during the negotiations. Japan said yes, which is why South Korea said yes to it. But Japan, after it got listed, said, no, we are not going to add the word forced.
So they're backtracking, basically.
They are backtracking after they got what they wanted.
And they backtracked and revealed it to media?
I'm not sure if they revealed it to the media, but the South Korean Foreign Ministry announced it to the media. Japan said they were going to reject it.
But that South Korea had asked this sort of
Yes, the
offer.
South Korea requested it, but Japan said no. And this is going to lead to all kinds of backlash against the South Korean government. The opposition party has said since day one that the Yoon administration has been pursuing a foreign policy of subservience toward Japan. But now that Japan has actually done what they did, this just fed right neatly into the opposition party's narrative.
Despite the South Korean government's efforts to not go that way.
Exactly. The South Korean opposition has been saying this is a give and take relationship. And we have been giving, but what have we been getting in return? And so far, at least from what we can see, especially with the Sado gold mine, which is a hot button issue in Korea, we didn't get anything. And so the opposition party is going to get a blowtorch and go after the government, and it is going to deserve everything that it gets.
It's like PR material for DP on a silver platter, but what would be the ideal way for South Korean government to now resolve this?
I'm not sure if it can resolve it because Japan got what it wanted. The Sado gold mine is now a World Heritage Site.
So what's done is done, and
What's done is done, and we've got egg on our face and nothing more.
and what about Japan? Are they in any way aware of how South Koreans are taking this?
Look, all politics is local, and I'm sure that the Japanese government had their own reasons. The Japanese nationalists, the right-wing members of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, they would have probably lost their minds if the word forced had been mentioned in that memorial. Because, admitting to historical facts is apparently a bad thing. And so because of their own domestic political concerns, they came to South Korea and said, no, we're not going to do it. And this is going to be 2016 all over again.
Right.
Remember how Park Geun-hye and Shinzo Abe had the irreversible comfort women deal? Well, it was reversible, and so will this current amicable good relations. So if anyone out there is feeling really great about all of this trilateral cooperation between the U.S., South Korea, and Japan, enjoy it while it lasts.
Well, but it's interesting because if you look at how progressive media in South Korea usually frames it, it's actually very much in line with what DP is saying with this case. Like, what did you get? It's a give and take relationship. What did you get? But conservative media usually focuses more on, well, the security cooperation with Japan was what everybody else wanted for a long time, so this is a good deal. So what exactly were the give and takes so far?
Well, when it came to this particular deal, yes, it's the latest step into getting that trilateral cooperation. But what you just said, that this is what everyone has wanted, that's what the government is saying, it's not what the opposition is saying.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants this. And yeah, because of this really back-asswards deal, this will be reversible, and it most likely will be.
So, and it also sets a bad precedence for Yoon's Japan policy as well, right? Because it sort of looked like it's going well from conservatives' point of view.
Is it? I don't think even
Wasn't it?
conservatives are happy about this.
I mean, not the Sado gold mine, but security aspect.
The security aspect is great from the conservative perspective, but again, we have to think about the big picture. How permanent will this be? I'm thinking no way.
Moving on to the next topic, it's slightly related to foreign policy, but this is a bit more domestic politics. There are more K-FARA variants that are actually not FARA.
FARA being the Foreign Agents Registration Act, the U.S. law. And we're bringing this up because, as those of you who've been keeping with Korean news, several weeks ago now, a Korean-American scholar, Sumi Terry, was indicted because of her workings with the South Korean National Intelligence Service. And because of all this that's been going on, there's been a lot of pushback within the South Korea to also have our version of the K-FARA law.
Right. The sentiment was like, okay, they're indicting someone who was very in favor of South Korean foreign policy. And what are we doing? Like, why are we not amending our law so we have something similar to this? So they started this. But if you actually look at the 7 proposed bills in the past few weeks, they are actually not that similar to FARA.
Okay, but first we have to talk about why these bills are being proposed. Now, you just wrote this analysis. So could you tell us about the espionage law that exists in its current form?
Right. The espionage law is technically part of South Korea's Criminal Act, which was last amended, never, and enacted and written in 1953. Because, and so it shows a lot of wartime sort of worldview, especially when it comes to the subject. It's enemy country, colluding with enemy, working for the enemy country's benefit. It does not include any other countries. And in South Korea, when you say enemy country, it's just North Korea.
Okay, so the law only talks about how espionage that benefits the enemy country, i.e. North Korea, is punishable by blah, blah, blah.
Punished by death, life imprisonment, or imprisonment for not less than 7 years. So it's very short, and it's just this.
Okay, but going back to Sumi Terry was not a spy. From what the U.S. indictment says, it's because she did not register as a foreign agent working with the South Korean government.
Right, and the allegation is closer to influence operation, going along with someone else's influence operation rather than espionage.
And we know that there have been a lot of people from one way or another have been trying to influence the South Korean government as well. And so these 7 proposed laws are supposed to be the K-FARA bills.
Right, but if you look at it, the only part that's similar to FARA is just F. It's just K, because they are trying to amend this Criminal Act, Article 98's enemy country part into foreign country, or maybe add another clause that states there is certain punishment for people colluding with foreign entities or foreign individuals or foreign countries. But it's not about registering. It's about criminalizing all sorts of activities with this very broad definition of what espionage is in modern days.
So the only similarity that it really has with the U.S. FARA law is the name.
Just F.
Just F.
Yeah.
And beyond that, it's just about expanding the breadth and the scope of the law and the different kinds of penalties that goes along with it.
Right. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have this. I think this was long overdue, and the lawmakers also know this. 19th National Assembly, 20th, 21st, 20th, they all discussed this, but it was always rejected or did not pass the committee discussion. And this was due to the problems with how to define espionage, first of all, the definition of espionage and the subjects, and what is quasi-enemy state, what is enemy state, and how do we differentiate between working with or for foreign countries that are our allies or partnering countries and North Korea.
Well, excuse me, this might be difficult, but isn't that what lawmakers are supposed to do?
Right.
Isn't that what they're getting paid with our tax monies to do?
I think they usually have difficulties just drafting normal laws, but in this case, there are 7 very specific laws with perks and different problems. And I'm just going to name some of them that will kick off really fierce debate in the parliament in coming weeks. One thing is that some proposed bills mention not just active espionage, direct selling or leaking of information, but also stuff like fake news. Disinformation for the sake of foreign country. Now, this is really vague and difficult to interpret when it comes to specific cases, and this is really prone to misuse and politicization.
A lot of vague wording.
Right. And another problem is influence operation part, it's sort of other countries are also amending to apply this as well. So that's really not an issue. But the penalty is sort of, it's all similar to all sorts of different types of espionage activities that they are using with these broad definition. So there is this problem of disproportionate punishment to different crimes.
So even if it's not technically spying, but they're trying to influence the South Korean government or gain information by, I don't know.
Or even just aggregating.
Or aggregating information, or trying to have different research centers or universities trying to have joint sorts of information sharing. All of that is also going to be punishable by the same sort of punishment as would be reserved for spies. Is that what you're saying?
That's a problem because it will depend on how the judges interpret that law if this passes.
Oh, so it depends on each individual judge and lawmaker and lawyer and prosecutor looking into this law.
And the cases, it's going to go well.
Things are going swimmingly, as usual, here in the land of the morning calm.
Right, and lastly, the controversy, which also existed in the past, will be how to incorporate the aspect of industrial and defense-related technological information leaks.
Speaking of defense and technological leaks, this was an exclusive from a different publication, so we have to take this with a pinch of salt. But apparently, all of the classified information about the K2 Black Panther tank was just lifted and stolen and sold to someone else.
Right. It was one company to another, it seems. It's not to a foreign company, it seems.
It was sold to another South Korean company.
Rather than sold, they leaked it because they were promised bigger payment when they move.
I think that's a type of deferred selling, but okay.
Right. So they framed it like, the media framed it like they were scouted, headhunted for this to get the information and bring it. But this is not new. We have seen this sort of leaks in multiple cases in the past. There was SK Hynix case recently as well, and Samsung Semiconductor core technology as well. So going back to this K-FARA variants that are not FARA, but just Espionage Act, some DP and PPP lawmakers, different bills, they want to include these sort of industrial espionage cases into the Criminal Act.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to go off on a bit of a tangent here. Several years ago, I remember reading about how someone who was working at Coca-Cola tried to sell the ingredients to the soft drink to Pepsi, but eventually Pepsi said no, and we're calling the cops and got that person into jail. How is it that South Korean defense companies and their employees have less principles than Coca-Cola and Pepsi?
Well, also they use USB.
Of course they did. Of course their computers had USB ports, because why not at this point?
If you are a staffer at government or military facilities here, please don't use USBs.
And please change your desktops.
Anyways, going back to the proposed bills. Another problem with this is, again, how to define these sort of secrets. How do you define secrets? Currently, it's a bit narrow when it comes to state secret or military secret, but the version that PPP's lawmaker In Yo-han proposed, it says let's actually redefine this to make it broader, because industrial intel is also part of our national security. So they want to change the definition of state secret to something that is better for national interests that just a few of us know.
So the fewer the people know, the better.
Right.
And who defines that?
And that is the literal definition that they went for. And the military secret, it says it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's classified by law, but something that is better for other countries to just not know.
This doesn't sound like it was drafted by anyone who knows anything about the law.
But anyways, it's probably the Judiciary Committee will discuss all of the 7 bills or 7 proposed bills or more coming in one session, probably. That's what they did last time. So keep an eye on it. I will monitor it when it happens and let you know.
Stay ahead in understanding South Korean politics, business and society with a Korea Pro subscription. Gain access to daily email newsletters, expert briefings and exclusive events designed for professionals like you. As a podcast listener, you can now try Korea Pro for free and subscribe at a discounted rate if you like what we're doing. Equip yourself with the insights that matter most. Visit koreapro.org/podcast to subscribe and ensure you never miss a critical update. Korea Pro, never be sidelined again.
week ahead, Liberation Day next week.
August 15th.
NK News side, the most important thing is the reported announcement, a scheduled announcement by President Yoon of a new unification roadmap that we have been hearing for 2 years. But on South Korea news side, this will be the moment that Yoon will maybe discuss something related to Japan and history for the first time after all the Sado mine incident.
It will be a perfect opportunity for people to bring their produce and rotten eggs and lettuce and just start throwing them. No, don't actually do that. That would get you into trouble. But, do that in your minds.
Right, and it's public holiday. And next week, not next week, but next week, the Uchi Freedom Shield, the biggest annual U.S.-South Korea joint drills will go ahead. And although South Korean officials multiple times anonymously said that there might be a nuclear attack scenario sort of training, U.S. side said, actually, no, that's not going to happen.
Why would we train for that scenario? If we did, we'd all be dead. But anyway, all of this information will be sent to your email inboxes in the week ahead by Monday at 2 p.m. So please subscribe for more.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why they matter every morning in your inboxes.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for your weekly dose of insight. And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
And I'm John Lay. Stay connected, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on the Great Pro Podcast.